Module 4, 20th Century British Literature, starting with W.B. Yeats' poems The Second Coming and Sailing to Byzantium. In Second Coming, the speaker describes a nightmarish scene, the haphazard brutality of his contemporary culture. Things are falling apart. The center of our civilization is disintegrating. He waits for the second coming of the earth-shaking beast like new spirit. The beast is going to take Christ's place in the cradle of Bethlehem. Beast will vex man's old sleep to a new nightmare. The speaker's vision of the rising sphinx is his vision of the character of the new world. Sailing to Byzantium uses a journey to Byzantium as a metaphor for a spiritual journey. The metaphorical journey of a man pursuing his own vision of eternal life as well as his conception of paradise. The poem is about the difficulty of keeping one's soul alive in a fragile, failing human body. In Byzantium, he hopes to learn how to move past his mortality and become something more like an immortal work of art. T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland is a dramatic monologue with Tiresias as its protagonist. Eliot brings out the loss and depravity of the European civilization. The poem is a rich, dense mosaic, a heap of broken images with 5 different parts or movements, of which the first 4 sections correspond to the Greek classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Tiresias is a blind prophet from classical mythology on whom the 2 sexes meet, functions as a connecting link between the various sections of the poem. The title of the 5th section could be a reference to the 5th element of ether. The early title of this poem was He Do the Police in Different Voices. The themes are decline of civilization, impossibility of recovering meaning in life. The modern world is spiritually distempered, fails to find solace in religion, sex and ideologies, and it is full of broken images. So questions like the modern life or modern world portrayed in the poem can be asked. And all 5 sections are very, very important in this poem. The burial of the dead, a game of chess, the fire sermon, death by water, what the thunder said. The poem ends with the word Shanti repeated thrice, where Eliot appears to underscore the positive value of the fragments of tradition left to him to build a new order and make his own contribution to the revitalizing of broken tradition. W.H. Auden's In Memory of W.B. Yeats is an unconventional elegy. Auden does not pay any extravagant tribute to the poet Yeats, nor does he hide or whitewash Yeats' weaknesses and follies from our view. For him, death of Yeats is not a great matter. It is quite inevitable and will soon be overshadowed by other sensational events that happen in the world. The revolutionary fervour and spirit of freedom of the Irish people under the British yoke hurled Yeats into poetry. Yeats never cared for the ever changing and unsteady literary fashions of his time. After the death of Yeats, he has become a matter of praise and fame, and his poetry is being evaluated and adjudged by various critics and readers in 100 cities, according to their own literary taste of principles. In fact, poetry makes nothing happen and cannot alter the way of the world. As the clouds of war gather over Europe and the Yeatsian Second Coming appears imminent, his poetry assumes particular significance. It works as a healing fountain in the deserts of our hearts. Dylan Thomas' poem in October is written on the 30th birthday of the poet. The poem recounts a journey in time to the sunlit golden days of childhood with all its visionary gleam, glory, and dream. Poem in October shows Dylan Thomas's deep love for nature. He recollects the good old mornings when he used to stroll in the company of his beloved mother through the countryside, bathed in sunlight. The focus of the poem is on the magic and wonder of childhood. His concluding prayer is that the next birthday should find him again on this hill high, singing out his heart's truth. Sylvia Plath's daddy is a violent, harsh attack on the dead father. The love-hate relationship with her father is the dominant theme in the poem. Sylvia Plath regards her father as her greatest tormentor. Father has always been an obsession with her, denoting Electra of and admiration. And Daddy poem belongs to the last phase of Plath's creative life. It was written in October 1962, 4 months before her suicide. It was published posthumously in Ariel during 1965, alongside many of her other poems leading up to her death, such as Tulips and Lady Lazarus. In Philip Larkin's Church Going, the speaker is a non believer and agonistic. He feels awkward and out of place within a church, yet enters a church out of habit. He realizes that faith is disappearing from society and wonders what church shall turn into. Yet it pleases the poet to stand in the silence of the church. The church is a place where someone will always seek seriousness, where the past lies buried. In church going, the poet introduces a skeptical speaker who questions the relevance of churches and religious institutions in today's world. In the conclusion, the place is worth visiting and worth protecting. Without such places, life becomes sterile, insipid, and worthless. Carol Ann Duffy's Annie Hathaway is a sonnet which is preceded by an epigraph quoting William Shakespeare's will, in which he left his second best bed to his wife, Annie Hathaway. Second best bed is considered as a place of wonder, a spinning world. Here, the bed is a symbol for the everlasting love between the two that Annie can hold on to now that her husband has died. The bed does not need to be the best bed because for Annie Hathaway it becomes a fantasy world for her. The husband used to explore her, to observe with wonder. She compares his writing to both shooting stars and kisses. Her body in turn relates to his as poetic devices like assonance and echo relate to his writing. In this manner, she becomes part of his writing. She feels that if he had written or created her, she would have been better, happier. In bed together, they mimicked and mirrored one another. They chose to give visitors their best bed, and they took this one for themselves. The speaker compares how she holds her deceased husband in her mind to how he held her in the second best bed. This ending feels like a promise, a way for the widow to honor her husband in death as he honored her in life. Ted Hughes' The Thought Fox is an animal poem. He captured his fox at the same time as he completed the poem. The fox manifests within the poem. The fox is the poem, and both are a product of the poet's imagination. The darkness of the night metaphorically stands for the darkness in his imaginative faculty, which is silent and strangely exciting him. The ticking of the clock symbolizes the ticking of the poet's mind to express it in any form. The action is described as a sudden, sharp, hot sting of fox, where the immature and raw idea suddenly with the sharp sting gets realized and flow through the pen on the paper. Now the dim and mysterious fox, which was figureless in the darkness, has got the shape of the poem. The white snow with the footprint stand on the blank paper printed with the poetic creation of the poet. Thomas Gunn's On the Move shows the aimless but threatening movement of a motorcycle gang. It becomes a metaphor for modern man's sense of alienation and lack of lasting problem, not knowing one's destination, and so joining the movement which offers the illusion of purpose as a part solution. The modern man in general lacks a clear sense of purpose and thus follow others even if their activity too is ultimately purposeless. The young black jacketed motorcyclists of the West become fitting symbols of restless energy and violent movement. The subtitle of the poem, Man, You Gotta Go, denotes the unwillingness and inability to stand still. It is the epigraph to the poem. The poem can be understood in three ways: as an example for the poet's heroic stance, as a sociological footnote of the 50s, and as a beautifully finished piece of imaginative writing. George Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion is a play in which Professor Higgins, a scientist of phonetics, turns Eliza Doolittle, a Covent Garden flower girl, to a high class civilized lady in all manners, especially in the way of speaking. So, in this play, the themes are appearance and reality, beauty, change and transformation, identity, language, meaning, wealth and poverty, etc. T.S. Eliot's Murder in the Cathedral portrays the assassination of Archbishop Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral during the reign of Henry II in 1170. Eliot drew heavily on the writing of Edward Grimm, a clerk who was an eyewitness to the event. The play includes incidents taking place between 2nd and 29th of December 1170. The highlight of the play is the internal struggle faced by the Thomas Becket, which reveals his psychology as well as the situation prevailing in the society that caused bloodshed. The struggle between the Archbishop and the authorities also reflect the effect of the rise of fascism in Central Europe at the times of Eliot. The book has been divided into two parts. The first part reveals the action taking place inside Archbishop Thomas Becket's hall on 2nd December 1170. The second part of the play includes incidents taking place on the 29th of December 1170. 4 knights of the king kill Sir Thomas Becket, and the murder is justified since church should not undermine state power. James Synge's The Playboy of the Western World focuses on the reception given to Christy Mahon as he wanders into a small Irish village declaring that he has just murdered his father. The villagers initially embrace Christy, determining that his courageous act has made him the playboy of the Western world. Their vision of him, however, soon changes as the plot develops. In his depiction of the interaction between Christy and the villagers, and especially of the relationship between Christy and Pigeon Flaherty, an attractive, strong-willed young local woman, Synge explores the effects of social conventions and celebrates the power of imagination. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, a tragedy in 2 acts, belongs to the category of theatre of absurd. Only 5 characters appear on the stage: Vladimir and Estrogen, Lucky, a slave, and his master Pozo, and a boy as a messenger. Vladimir and Estrogen are waiting for Godot. For what purpose, we don't know. Who is Godot? We don't know. But Godot never arrives. The themes of this play are uncertainty of time, folly of seeking meaning, purposelessness of life, and absurdity of life. So, questions regarding these themes can be asked. The Birthday Party is Harold Pinter's first full-length play. It centers on Stanley Webber, a musician in his late 30s. It belongs to the category of comedy of menace. It suggests that danger lurks everywhere and peace is only an illusion which is subject to sudden destruction by the appearance of an intruder. Here, the intruders are McCann and Goldberg. At the end of the play, we can see McCann and Goldberg taking Stanley Webber to a person named Mondi and to an unknown organization. We don't know the reason why they are taking him to Monty. Here also the theme of meaninglessness of existence, just like Waiting for Godot. In the essay Tradition and the Individual Talent, T.S. Eliot violently refuted the view that the greatness of a poet lies in his originality, individuality, or his difference from other poets. He says that it is often seen that not only the best but the most individual parts of our work may be those in which the dead poets, the ancestors, assert their immortality most vigorously. Tradition is indispensable. According to him, the tradition does not mean stopping in the same place. It is not blind adherence to the past, nor is it something that can be inherited. One has to acquire it with great labor. It demands the historical sense, which is not simply knowledge of history. It involves a perception not only of the pastness of the past, but of its presence, a sense of balance which trains one to discriminate one's passion from objective criterion. The progress of an artist is a continual self sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. It is in this depersonalization that art approaches the condition of science. Modern fiction, the essay by Virginia Woolf, is a criticism of writers and literature from the previous generation. Woolf criticizes H.G. Wells, Arnold Bennett, John Galsworthy of writing about unimportant things and called them materialist. The group of writers which she names spiritualist includes James Joyce, who Woolf says writes what interests and moves him. She praises Anton Chekhov's short stories, May Sinclair's fiction, Catherine Mansfield's stories, and George Egerton. It also acts as a guide for writers of modern fiction to write what they feel, not what society or publishers want them to write.